Meg Miller, welcome to the LYHL podcast. It's so great to have you here. I really wish I was seeing your face right now, but since I'm out of the country, I'm having a little unstable internet, but I'm excited to explore, and we'll hope that the audio comes through for this, but really excited to have you here.
Thanks. I'm very excited to be with you, and I'm looking at your profile picture as if it is you, so pretending to talk to your face anyway.
Lovely. I love it, yeah, because I'm looking at a nice smiley picture of you, and I have some sort of contemplative, very relaxed, resting face. So hopefully that sends a good energy to you.
Yes.
Yeah, you're somebody, I don't know, how long have we known each other? We're in 2022, I think.
Goodness. Probably, more than 10 years.
Yeah. Yeah, isn't that great that we are at that point in our life where we get to start talking in decades?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, so about 10 years. And I know you're somebody that I enjoy spending time with, and just life is busy, and it just seems like doesn't happen all that often in LA. We're both in LA, right? But we live far enough away, 4 or 5 miles. Yeah. That's just infinity, right? You might as well live in Chicago or something.
That's true. Yeah, it's more, I feel like it's like the schedule. The schedule is the barrier more than anything on my end. But yeah, I love when we get to see each other and be walking around Echo Park Lake together, etc.
That's right. Gosh, we haven't done that since the pandemic. Okay, well, we'll have to get that back on the list. I'm back next week, so let's we'll get to speaking of said calendar. That's right.
Yes.
We get to watch. There's so many more boats on that lake now, so it's it's a happening place over there, and the new playground and stuff. So for the kiddos if they're involved. So I'm so grateful that we get to have this and get to have it in the context. I'm excited to what part of me doing these conversations is I just really enjoy them, and then I'm just excited to learn from people in different perspectives. My word for the year is curiosity, and this just fits really well within it. And it's not that I plan to end the podcast this year, but just as all my words are, my themes, they build and grow, and they're things I try to incorporate into my life. So I hope to be a good listener and hopefully ask good questions, and I'm excited for where this conversation takes us.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love curiosity.
So our number one question, just to launch us off, is how would you describe your work and vocation?
Yeah, I was, speaking of curiosity, I was curious how you define each of those words and why you included both.
Yeah, are we starting there?
So,
okay, yeah.
I think we could start there, and that'll help me also frame my thoughts around it.
Yeah.
Because I did have a little conversation with myself about that question, but I was really curious for you how they overlap, or how they, is there a Venn diagram of those words for you?
Yeah, I don't see them as synonymous. I do think they overlap as in a Venn diagram. I think our work fits within our vocation. I think vocation, without looking this up or anything right now, this is great. Put me on the spot. I love it. Vocation, I think of kind of as akin to kind of calling, what you feel like you're meant to do. And I think that can be something you're paid for. That can be something you volunteer. That can be something that comes about in the roles in your life, or being neighborly. Work, I think, can also be paid or not paid, but I think that becomes a bit more concrete. So maybe vocation maybe falls in a little bit more into, hold on, am I going to say these things right? Oh shoot, I'm missing a word. Oh no, no. I've had a little bit of problem with the recollection of just normal words I should know recently. But I'm thinking of vocation. Yeah, okay, it came. Good. Nice. I vamped enough that I think I got it. So vocation.
Oh, great.
Vocation maybe being akin to your vision.
Ah, yes.
You know, in your life, and then work is kind of like more your mission of how that, like, how you kind of break that down in practical ways. But I don't approach this conversation as like a right or wrong way. It's like very interesting to just see how people take those words and how they describe themselves. Like how I always approach these conversations is I don't research the people, and how I'm structuring it now is that these are people in my circle, these are friends, these are colleagues, these are, acquaintances. I'm not, cold contacting people and trying to reach out and do this. But even with the people I know, I'm not doing like let me visit their website, or, let's have conversations ahead of time. It's really just about sitting down and exploring, what it means to live your healthiest life. And so and we spend so much time doing work. And I think a lot of people don't think about vocation. I think our culture is very work-centered. And when we don't think about our vocation, we maybe aren't really content or happy because of the work that we are choosing to do. And a lot of us maybe don't think that we have a choice in our work. But I think a lot of that is not claiming our agency. So there you go. Now, those are some thoughts about it. What did you think about work and vocation, and Venn diagram of those? And,
yes.
And then
thank you.
Yeah, and then we can get into how you would describe yours. But yeah, just general concepts. Like, what do you think?
Yeah. Thank you for sharing all of that. I very much resonate with all the things you said. Particularly the idea of a vocation being a vision and work being like the mission. I think that kind of summarizes how I interact with those words as well, and that kind of those concepts or ideas for my life anyway. And that the idea of a financial exchange floating around and not necessarily being directly connected to either one of those, but can be, of course. And so that's all very interesting to me, and I concur. So I have been kind of crafting bringing language to what I feel I know about my vocation. And up until recently, I haven't really had language for it. And so I realize like I really want that, and to bring clarity to what my mission and missions are, as far as like living into that vision. So and vocation. So I'm just going to read to you what I call a shitty first draft of the vision. I'm calling it currently my impact vision for me being on planet Earth. Is to create togetherness, unity, fun times, vulnerability, and growth with and for individuals, groups, and humanity. So for me, that means it can be individuals for themselves, straight up until like the entire human race. So my work specifically, what I am paid to do is coaching. So I typically use the phrase executive coaching. So far, that's what kind of encapsulates what I do the best in my mind. And there's a lot of interpretations to that. So I describe it also as transformational coaching, and it has like three different pillars, and one is vision, one is mindset, and one is strategy. So we always start with vision, and then when there's a clear vision that's very specific, we can start to see the dots getting like appearing and connecting as far as strategy goes to execute in order to reach that vision. And as we execute the strategy, then all these wonderful thoughts and feelings come up, and we get to talk about our mindset and who we get to become and grow into in order to accomplish that vision that is so much bigger than who we are now. So that's what I do for work. And I work with individuals and groups. My coaching firm, Novus Global, works with teams of all shapes and sizes in all different industries and professions, all of the things. Mm-hmm. So that's what I do. And as far as work, like unpaid work kinds of things, I've done a fair amount of like emceeing events, as you know. Mm-hmm. I love doing that. I love just volunteering for that, for different organizations or fundraisers or various things. So I love creating a space for people to connect and relax within themselves and with one another, to like have a genuine connection, and laugh a little bit, and maybe notice something interesting about themselves or someone else that they might not have noticed before or might not have celebrated recently. So I love that. I do consider that a big part of my vocation. Mm-hmm. And it is thrilling to me when it turns into a work/mission, mm-hmm. In a like really tangible way like that, like actually doing an event or having those moments with groups of people. Yes, and I think that pretty much covers it. I am also raising citizens of the world. So yes, I have two children. Yes. You mentioned, the playground for the boys. So the boys are 7 mm-hmm. and 5, and that is a big, an important and meaningful work/mission/vocation in my life. Yeah. Is those kiddos and what they are, who they are and all of that. So I do have that privilege and have earned those stripes. Yes, I don't know. Yeah. Oh my goodness! I wear the badge of motherhood.
Some complexity there, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, baby. Turns out. Anyway, that's a whole different podcast.
No, you can say whatever you want. Everything's fair game.
Yeah. So in conclusion, wrapping up that part of it, that's a huge piece of my life, is raising these 2 citizens of the world, and it's very, very important to me. Yeah. So that is my answer to question number 1. Elle.
I love it. And and I'm really grateful, that you've included, your children in there. I think that can be, I don't have my own kids, but just observing the world and females in the world, specifically mothers in the world, like I just feel like that experience can be really downplayed and not valued for what it is, and the importance of that. And I love that you have such, because even this, you're saying it kind of playfully, but the citizens of the world, like that, this is like a really grand label you're giving that, and it almost does give that vision of like, oh yeah, I'm raising these kids, but no, I'm raising these humans that I have the privilege and the honor, right, and have some stripes to, maybe. Some wounds or things that have, some scars from that show that it's real life. And so, yeah, as we think about and explore, like living our healthiest life, like clearly relationships are super important to you in that, right? And everything you described was really about well, there was actually a lot of, but you're offering something to other people is in short, I think what I heard, and there's the specifics of what you shared, within your vision of togetherness, unity, and I'm sure even having children fit within that, and vulnerability, and growth, and as individuals, as groups. And can I come back? Did I hear you say with the vision? Just the human race?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, humanity.
Okay, yeah. So can we linger there a little bit?
Sure.
Because I like the audacity of that. And I was like, wait, did she say that? I like that. I'm not going to let that just sneak by as long as I can remember to come back to it, which I did. I'm just going to put that simple question. Is it a question? It's an invitation.
Yeah.
Tell me more about
an invitation.
Tell me more about this human race part that you finished that with.
Yeah. I really I love that you asked that. It invited me into this piece because I say that also playfully, but really it is meaningful to me to have that to expand my vision for impact to anyone who falls under the human category, because I've found that it's easy for me to compartmentalize various things in life. And when I'm, technically in my work hours and work time with coaching, it's, very clear my vision there, and I'm working with individuals and groups for these different things. And then when I switch into like parent mode, I can compartmentalize myself as a parent and what how I show up there and how I operate. And then when I'm going to the grocery store, I can act a certain way or operate in a certain mode as if my impact is less in that space than these other spaces. And it's not. I want to be and am becoming more of a person who is really clear about the impact I want to make any space I'm in. Yeah. And when I have that in my mind, I live into that more powerfully. So there's also times where I'm like, don't talk to me. I'm, I'm just going to the bank.
Yeah, you're spent, or you're,
yeah,
get a little dysregulated at times. Yeah.
Exactly. And I love that you said dysregulated, because self-regulation is like huge for me right now. It's a big, that's basically my answer to all three of the next questions.
Okay, good. Okay.
Yeah. But I just, it helps me remember, like, oh yeah, all of these people are humans, and all of these people can experience vulnerability with themselves and with others. And we can create togetherness and unity. And without the vision, it may or may not happen. But with the vision, I'm more likely to create it, because it also flows from me. Like these are things that flow naturally from me when I am regulated and when I am clear about what I'm up to. And it doesn't need to be like a big heavy thing. It's just a reminder to myself that I these are the things that bring me joy, because it's like the chicken or the egg. Like, do they bring me joy because I'm doing them, or am I doing them because they bring me joy? Or did I mess that up? Or because I'm joyful, these things are happening. Yeah. It's, so the humanity thing is like, this is for everyone. This is not for a specific group of people. Mm-hmm. This is not just for my clients. It's not just for my kids. It's not just for my neighbors. It's for the person that I can't stand who, is like smoking outside my window. And when I remember that, I go, oh yeah, this person is enjoying a cigarette for their life, and I might not make that choice, but they are, and I can be friendly to them, and I can also make requests. Yeah. So, we can even create fun times and unity in a, like, hey, I see you have that cigarette, cool smoke circles, and can we find a way for everyone to enjoy this space together?
Yeah.
So that's a really silly example, but those are my ponderings. Those are my just meandering thoughts on that.
No, I love that, and that's wonderful. And how I can linger there and extract more things, but I'm also learning to budget my podcast time. So let's go into the next one, and let's see where it takes us. So question number 2, what do you think it means to live your healthiest life, Meg?
Yeah, for me as an individual, living my healthiest life means to be aware of my thoughts and feelings, like name them, have language for them, and then self-regulate just my nervous system. So all those things, are connected. On like a very basic level, the self-regulation thing, I've been learning a lot about sensory input and sensory processing and sensory output because of how my kids are wired and what I'm noticing with them, and then reflecting with myself, like, what's my experience of those things, and how do these things all work together within our family unit, and how do they clash? And when they clash, what do we do? When I'm in the red zone, how do I operate? So the self-regulation, the language that we use in our home is these different color zones. Okay. And they're like, green is like regulated, relatively calm, easy breezy, like good to go. Yellow is maybe a little extra silly, kind of amped up, maybe irritated, hungry, just like some kind of like having extra stimulation that's like rising in any direction. Yeah. And then there's red zone, which is like fight, flight, feign, or freeze. Just like survival mode, stress, and that looks even more extreme. And depending on the person, it can be extreme to the outside, or it can just be extreme on the inside, or some variation of all of that spectrum. And then there's a blue zone, which is like very feeling blue, feeling sad, down, depressed, really in that space. Sadness from that movie that we love, Inside Out, is blue, and she lives in the blue. So that is the color zone thing with the self-regulation. So for me to live my healthiest life, I am aware of what zone I'm in and what zone I want to be in, and how do I get to that zone. So sometimes it might look like having a really intense workout, getting some energy out, having, pushing heavy things, this kind of thing. Sometimes it could look like, having a meditation, or just standing outside with my eyes closed and breathing in fresh air, smelling nature. It can look like laughing really hard and intentionally thinking like, ooh, I want to laugh. I want to giggle. I'm going to watch something funny and like let myself loose.
Yes.
Yeah. Something like that. So it's really being aware of myself and what I need for my nervous system to be regulated. And then above that, and kind of really partnering with that, is my routines. And I'm still developing what is the best routine for me, because up until now I have like default routines, and some of them are like great, and I would proudly, write a blog about a routine that I might have. And then some of them I'm like, that's maybe not the best routine that I just have every day. So I'm being intentional about even thinking about these things and considering what I want my days to look like and how I can set myself up for the green zone regulation zone ahead of time. So if I wake up, this is a routine that I don't love. When I wake up and grab my phone, look at my messages, I've already been like popping my sleep mask on and off, looking at the clock, how much more time do I have to sleep, my kids are crawling over me, it's kind of this like, do I have to energy to the wake up. And at this point I'm like, oh, this feels familiar and comfortable, and so I'm fine with it. But really, when I slow down and consider my nervous system, she's saying, hey, a bit more calm and joy and like groundedness in the morning would really help at that wake up time. So now I'm, just thinking, I know myself well enough to know that if I were to just decide a new morning routine and like say, I'm going to do this 5 days a week or 7 days a week, that is setting myself up for failure. And I'm in this for like the long haul. So I want to, I'm just now really talking to myself about, hey, what can we do in a bite-sized way that will be delightful? Not just like, I know I could do this and I would have a better life, but what would bring me real delight in remembering I get to do this in the morning, and then leave that experience feeling like, oh yeah, that was so great. I'm so glad that I had that for myself and with myself.
And you mean that's not just looking at your phone isn't your delight? Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it depends on the messages. Yeah, that's right. It depends on what's there. Oh my gosh. But to that effect, actually, I went on vacation with my family in June, and my husband decided to be off Instagram during that time. And he said, join me, like, just, get rid of the app on your phone, not like delete the account, but just try not having it on your phone, which I do from time to time, whatever. Okay, great, cool. So I did that. And then I thought, I'm not like ready to dive back into that. And I haven't had it since then. So I'll check in every once in a while on like the browser of Instagram to check for messages or whatnot. And other than that, haven't been engaging with social media really almost at all. That's really the only platform I use per se. A little bit of LinkedIn, but I'm not like my thumb doesn't go to the LinkedIn.
Yes, yeah, it's like a conscious experience versus
it's like
automated.
LinkedIn. Yeah. I would say I'm not addicted to LinkedIn where I was addicted to Instagram. Yeah. So I don't like that would be a normal check-in in the morning before this like hiatus, and that would be like fine. And sometimes there would be some news of my friends or family that like, oh, good to know. And it might even prompt me to connect with them through text message or something, which is delightful. However, overarchingly, that was just like I'm kind of numb. I'm a robot. I'm waking up, and I guess I need to know like what's happening in these different ways so that I'm prepared and I'm not letting anyone down, or it's just like that kind of energy that that I have sort of in that moment of like, what am I missing out on if I were to not grab my phone? And that's the thing that I want to slow down and really look at, and not in a shaming way or like a, you know, any kind of negative way. Just, oh, that's interesting. That's a habit. Is it bringing me closer to my vision?
Yeah.
Or is it neutral, or is it a distraction? And certainly it's a distraction from the vision I have for me as a parent and caregiver and modeling for these citizens of the world. Like, it's such an interesting filter or lens to look through to think if my kids, or, you know, even like my kids' friends, like, am I modeling the kind of behavior of a human that I would want someone else to emulate or not? It's like so basic to think that, and they see everything. So whenever it is that they do get phones and devices and things, they're already imprinted with the way that my husband and I have relationships with our phones. And I don't love that. I really don't love that. So the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago, and the second best time is today. So that's what I'm up to. Yeah. I'm sorry, I sort of like followed this little thought train into, I guess we were talking about the healthiest life thing, and I just really took us on a journey
How
there.
dare you? I'm really upset. If you could see my face, you would see super frown, as I say it, laughing and smiling. Super frown. No, that's beautiful. I think there's so much in there of what. Because really, and we're getting into the next question is, you know, what are you currently learning about living your healthiest life? And is that okay that you've shared about things that are current, that, oh yeah, I've deleted Instagram from my phone. I think that's really wonderful. And I can really relate to that even for years, even before I was really like Instagram-y. I was, well, we don't have to get into that, speaking of rabbit trails. Even in like Facebook, you know, kind of era, I had this awareness of like, I don't like my relationship to this, but I don't know how to change my relationship to it. And I couldn't, when I considered all the reasons why I was on there, which you're kind of touching on, like, because maybe, you know, you see somebody, and this is going on in their life, or they're there, and, you know, so that it can prompt connection. And so I definitely had those very prominent in my thinking about, you know, do I not, or how, you know, because I couldn't, because I think it was, and I think you did use the word addiction possibly. Am I putting that word there? Okay.
Yes. No, you did.
Because when I look at my life, or, you know, looked at my life, I was just like, this is a problem. You know, it's, I'm not boozing it up. I'm not, you know, drugs aren't a thing for me, or, you know, I'm not gambling, or, you know, I don't have a sexual addiction or whatever. But I was like, this social media thing, I just don't seem to have control over. But then when I, you know, pros and cons it, I couldn't really get to that space. But I really identify, I have issues with comparison, and I don't think I'm alone in that. But social media can just be so terrible for that. You know, you see the person on vacation, or you see the person like hanging out, or the party, and you're like, oh, what? Or the, you know, are there people looking so happy, or they're eating there, and you're like, well, we're gonna have, you know, pizza from Papa John's again, and get a big enough pizza. Get a big enough pizza that we have leftovers for however long.
Right.
You know, that, and just like that comparison, and also, you know, in that FOMO of if I'm not on there, you know, I'm not knowing what's going on. And so I relate to that big time, and I hope I'm making changes. And I think you've highlighted some of, just by sharing about your journey, that I think is helpful for other people to maybe just even be reflective of about that. And, you know, maybe it can encourage somebody to even take that next step of, because maybe for me, I do have it on my phone right now, and I have gone through seasons where I don't do it. I guess for me, I haven't needed to delete it to not be on it, I guess. But, you got to do whatever you have to do. But in my recent phone use, I don't have any notifications, so it's not, because that was so terrible when it was like notifying me, like, somebody liked your photo, and so getting into the notifications and changing all those things. And then when I go into the app, I can see it, but there's nothing that shows on my icon, so it has to be more of a conscious thing. It doesn't mean I'm automatic, but I'll also not put it on my main screen, so I have to, but we know that even that can be very we're just so deft at being automatic on our electronic devices. But no, I think that by you sharing that, I think that's really helpful. And I like the, not because it's not about being right, or I wish I was using different words for that, but I find it interesting to me and helpful, and I imagine is for other people. You said that you were wanting to build habits, so reflecting about your daily life and your routines, and and acknowledging your limitations. Okay, if I just try to do something cold turkey, it's not going to work. So framing it in a way that is incentivizing for you, and the word that you used that stood out to me was delightful, and I think that is such a wonderful invitation into what your ultimate goal is, right? So I find that very helpful.
Yeah, I'm glad. And I think another piece of that is the not judging what is currently happening.
Tell me more.
And like, if I notice I want something to be different, then it's very easy to slip into, for me, it's easy for me to slip into an internal dialogue of like, oh, well, of course this is happening because of this and this, and like you're weak in these areas, and so that's why it's this way, and it probably will continue to be this way, but I guess you could try to change it. It's kind of like negative tone when I am looking at my current reality. Just very simply, like, what is currently happening? Even, we're talking about morning routines, so like, what was my morning routine this morning? Was it helpful? Was it not? And just like holding out the facts without my stories assigned to them, and going, okay, that was current reality. And it's like instantaneous for me to assign judgment to thoughts or even facts to create meaning. We're meaning makers. And so I want to do that. And we, more than anything, we want to be right. Like, there's so much brain science about that. Yeah. And like, I love being right. And so now, how can I craft my brain space to be right about things that are actually resourceful? How can I be right about my thought patterns being actually helpful instead of proving that I'm a piece of shit or proving that I'm not capable of this type of change or behavior, or being right that like my scrappy methods of getting stuff done is enough, that it's all I'll be able to contribute, or whatever. These different narratives that have definitely been pervasive in my brain. So anyway, just I love to practice. It's a high challenge for me, and I do love practicing noticing something and then not judging it, like really just holding space for it, space and time, and like pause time, things floating in the air, like, okay, and just looking and noticing, and then deciding what to do with it, like creating this space between noticing and judgment.
It seems kind of like what you're describing is some of it, and I know there's different kinds of meditation or contemplation, but is that, and you mentioned that maybe that's something as an option, a potential of maybe what you're doing to regulate your system. so as you, how do I formulate this in a question? I'm basically trying to get to like linking, is this a meditative practice that you're doing kind of currently, or like what does that look like? If you could, tell a bit more about how what does that look like to create that space? What does it look like to just observe a thought? Is there strategy to it, or is there, do you position your body in a certain way? Are you doing it at certain times? Are you doing it throughout the day? Do you have methods that pull you out? Like what prompts you to notice, oh, I'm having a thought or emotion, right? Versus that automated way that we live. So there's 5 questions that you can go with whatever way you want.
Yeah, I love that question. And it's something I actually talk to my clients about a lot, because what we're doing in our sessions really is examining the way they're thinking about things and how they're relating to things. And when we examine it, we hold space to make a new thing occur and to create growth, and in an intentional way. So I like to kind of follow the breadcrumbs of what is happening, what do I do in action when I'm in a negative thought pattern? One of the things I do is I will eat for comfort versus sustenance. And even if I'm also eating for sustenance, I make a choice that is like very comfortable and very easy and this kind of thing, which may or may not be actually what my body wants and needs, but my brain certainly does. So when I notice, I've had a couple days of, eating more toast with peanut butter and jelly. There's nothing wrong with toast and peanut butter and jelly. I just happen to know that's one of my favorite comfort foods. So I can check in on that and go, hey, is there something for me to slow down on? Am I avoiding a thought that is causing some kind of discomfort in some way? And so there's like these little indicators. And speaking of social media, when I do like doom scrolling, or when I would do that, which actually I noticed that in place of my like Instagram doom scroll, after deleting that off my phone, I would find like the news on, I don't know what it's called, but like the little menu on my iPhone, like I had, top stories or whatever from these different, and I would go scroll through those. And so that was an indication to me, oh, hey, what's going on? Maybe we're just checking the news, and is there something else? So identifying those, what I call associated behaviors, and others call it that. This is actually like here's a little book reference, the 3 Laws of Performance.
Okay.
I have it right here, by Steve Zaffron and Dave Logan. It's a fantastic book.
Okay, I'll put that in. I'll get that stuff from you, and I'll put it in. 3 laws. Laws of what? I missed that. Of performance. The 3 laws of performance. Yeah.
The sub line is rewriting the future of your organization and your life, and it's all about zooming in on language and how things occur to you, and how we can really create a new future based on how we describe the future and describe current circumstances too. So this is like a racket breakdown that I'm kind of describing right now for anyone who might be familiar with that or want to learn about that. Is like the racket sheet. So I run these rackets of, beliefs or whatnot that are my winning strategies for getting what I want in a particular moment, like some kind of survival need, like, I want to feel good right now. I want to look good right now. So I'm going to run this racket, and the associated behaviors of running those rackets and having those negative thought patterns look like this. Okay, there's some doom scrolling, there's some comfort eating that's unwanted, there's whatever it is. And then I'm going to use that. My first baby step is using those as indicators that I have a choice to make, and I can pause and examine what is my vision here in this one moment? Is my vision to feel comfortable or safe? Am I committed to proving to myself that I'm a fraud right now and being right about that? Is there something else I want to commit to, such as like self-love or a moment of self-compassion? Really, self-compassion has been a practice that I actually wouldn't even call it a practice. It's spotty at best, but I've learned about it. I've read some books about it, and do have a couple exercises that I like to do that it help me through those moments of kind of beating myself up. So I'm inching into meditation as a regular practice. I don't do it yet, but we did just hang a little hammock chair in a closet. Yeah, so we have a little go-to physical space, and an understanding with our family. If someone's in the hammock chair, they are not to be spoken to, and they will not speak to anyone else either. It's like not a hard thing for my husband or I to accomplish, but certainly difficult for our 5-year-old not to be like, "Hey, Emmett, look at me swinging the hammock chair." So anyway, we're ramping into like creating that sacred space. Anyhow, so we have that to go to. So
I love that.
It's not a routine yet, but it is an available resource that we're all engaging with. Even this morning before school, I had this little dream fantasy pop in my head this summer when we had the chair put up, or when we put it up, that the boys would have, like a short little chair time before school every morning, just to like center themselves and have like a moment of pause before like get in the car, go to the gate, get in the line, and all the school stuff. So Wes did that today, and it was great. Yeah, and we were kind of running a little bit late, and I had a moment. This is a good example. I was running my racket of, we're late, we need to go, I'm annoyed, they don't listen, like so many thoughts, or they don't behave the way I want them to behave is more true, because they do listen, but then they may or may not make choices that I like. Yes. And I thought, what is my vision? It sounds like this, Elle. It sounds more like, oh, what's my vision? And then, honesty, I shake it off a little bit. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, I know, because thank you, not former Meg, but Meg of the past, to have the vision of being a mom who creates a space available, even when there might be some outside entity saying you're late.
Right.
We get to decide that, because the nervous system is the central system of our beings, physical beings, and we get to treat them how we want to treat them. And so I am a mom who cares about that, and I show that I care about that by offering, hey, does anyone want to sit in the hammock for a few minutes before we actually get in the car? And Wes did. And then he was in there for a little, and he said, I'm going in the hammock chair. Nobody talk to me.
So cute.
I was like,
yes, those are the rules. Those are the rules.
Yes. Those are the rules. Yes.
Enjoy
so like, celebrating
it.
that.
Yes.
Yeah. And then this is like where the rubber meets the road, because I, like, okay, great. So Emmett didn't want to. He was reading on the couch. Okay, awesome. That's also
good.
A form of meditation. Yeah, and self-regulation. And I'm standing there with, backpacks in my hand, like, do.
Yeah.
What do I do during that time? But I closed my eyes and took some deep breaths. And then it was like, okay, even just that beat.
Yeah.
And then it was time to go, and Wes wasn't prompting himself to get out of the chair. So then I was it's a new moment to decide. Okay, I've now opened this door, and what is now appropriate that is aligned with my vision, aligned with our commitments, and all the different to get the train
so
moving.
Do you add a layer? Would you like to have up to 3 minutes? I'm going to set the timer here.
That would be an upgrade.
Or is it the value that you're like, no, he'll take as long as he needs because I want him to listen to his body, and I want him to be able to trust that, or whatever. I don't know.
Yes, I think it's both, and at certain times, because we also have a high value for integrity and making commitments that we keep, we have committed to being to school before the tardy bell rings, and so we will do that. With this time, do you want to use the hammock chair? Okay, yes. All right, so based on our other commitments, how long could you do that? And if there was and this is where it really becomes like, around my coaching firm, we say jazz. Like, you have all the concepts completely mastered, and then it's jazz, and you get to like improvise and figure out the melody and all of that. And if he was in the yellow or red zone, and doing the hammock chair was really necessary for him to regulate back to the green zone, I would probably take his physical cues into consideration and wait and fuck school at that point. Like, because I want them to know that I support them, that their school and their teachers and their principal are not more important than what they're feeling in their body is real and all of that. So anyway, that's kind of like a Pandora's box that we can talk about for a long time. But he was already in the green zone. He was just saying, I would like to do that. So I kind of gave him a little nod and then said, okay, let's get to our next thing. And he popped out, and it was delightful and great. So anyway, that's some of what I do. It's really about noticing, finding something that will be automatic, that then you can name it. I'm going to be on the lookout for that, and we might not notice it happening until we do it several times. I've had a whole loaf of bread of peanut butter toast in 2 days, and like, okay, here's something.
Yeah, the prompt is that the bag is empty, and then you're like, oh, wait, okay, I have to go to the store. Oh, wait, why? I was just there.
Right. Yeah. Really just keep backing it up. And then have that moment without judgment. So pause. Hey, self, I'm noticing that I've had this, I've engaged in this behavior. It's an indication of something. I love you. I understand. I'm glad that you could be comforted in these ways. Thank you for helping keep me safe. And now that behavior is no longer wanted, we're going to switch to this other thing that we also love and want. And so the noticing, the pausing, noticing, and then making a new choice is like the pattern that's been really helpful to me.
Thank you for sharing all that. I think there's just so much in there to mine and even put into practice and to consider. I love the idea of having a chair like actually in your home, and knowing even that like a hammock chair, so smaller than an actual hammock, but it gets to swing, right? And how cathartic that could be. Yeah. And I've had the experience of in the pandemic prompting me to be like, okay, I'm not allowed to leave, but I need to get outside, and what am I going to do? And I don't want to be, maybe my neighbor's in the backyard. Okay, I'm going to put something in the side yard, and to put the hammock up. Yes. And then I had this experience of I closed my eyes and I made it swing. Closed my eyes, and all of a sudden I was like, I'm in my mother's arms, like what, as I must be like, a wee little one that, could listen to my mother's arms being rocked. And there was just that embodied sense, right? That word. It was just like a feeling in my body. It wasn't like I'm going to do this, and this is probably like what my mom did to me. No, it like came from within, and just how good that can feel. And you talked about earlier, with lifting, pushing heavy things, lifting heavy things, like that sort of like having these kind of things that just help us connect to a different part of our brain, which is more sensing what's happening in our body. And I think I love that, and I want to maybe consider how I could do that in my, I'll be looking for a new place soon, and like, could I set that up some way? So I really love that, just the even physical thing, even for an individual person, or how you're talking about it as a family. I think that's really great. And the talking about self-compassion, that's definitely something I feel like I'm learning a lot in this time, and like by learning like in very active need and doing that, and what a gift that is. And then as you do that, there is that stopping. It's exactly what you're describing. So I really resonate a lot with that of, oh, I'm doing this or feeling this way. So maybe it's like an emotion that I don't like. You mentioned, and I really want to rewatch, because I've only watched it once, but Inside Out, right?
Oh, yeah, Inside Out. Oh,
so I'll come back to that, because that is so good. Exactly. Speaking of vision, or people with, that are taking their skills, their work to like be part of a vision, like teach people about their emotions, and but that like realizing. So for me, maybe it's like because it could be a behavior like you're describing, or I found for me a lot recently, it might be an emotion where I'm like, I'm feeling angry. I don't like to feel angry. I've been conditioned to believe anger is bad. And then, okay, how can I pivot that? And what is my anger trying to tell me? And it's something I feel, like, because anger is like hot. It's like a burning. You just feel, it's a great way to expend calories. So if you're trying that feeling, and then just like, oh, and then, okay. And not only am I having the anger, but I'm also feeling judgment about the anger, which makes it harder, right? And then, and so there's these layers of that curiosity of peeling away. Okay, so I'm angry. I feel it in my body. Okay, what prompted me to feel this? What happened? Was it a thought internally? Did I see something on Instagram? Did I see something on the news? Did I get a text from somebody? Did I, see something? And, like, what prompted it, right? And then what am I actually feeling? Yeah. And then what am I feeling about my feelings? And then digging deep, because usually anger is like a more accessible emotion. And, for me, a lot of that anger is like from a hurt, from a sadness. And I think that's very common. And so if you only stay at that anger level, or if you're not curious about it, you don't really get to that hurt that needs to be treated with like a lot of kindness. And so it's been for me, just I really identify with that self-compassion. And then the more I've been exercising self-compassion about that anger in my life, then I'm really able to address that hurt. And then I'm actually grateful. Instead of feeling judgment about the anger, I'm actually grateful, because I'm like, this anger is telling me how deeply hurt I am. And it's helping me to take action to protect myself, because there's a lot of, it's speaking to a great like tenderness, like in vulnerability. And so anger, when used appropriately, can really prompt action, right? And so it can, whereas, because it's so intense, right? And then it can help me, we haven't talked about it today, but boundaries, right? It can help me say, oh, I need to be very careful about this. And, whether that is, so then I look back, well, it was something on Instagram, what that person posted. Okay, well, is this person, what they're sharing, is that helpful for me right now? Or that this interaction with this person, is that, no, that doesn't, and that seems kind of consistent. Okay, then how can I change that, right? Instead of just being a victim, right? Or just being, or just judging yourself, or going into shame about like, and then even the story you tell, because there's all kinds of stories, maybe initially when I was really experiencing this anger of like, oh, I'm always going to be this way, I'm just going to be this like bitter old lady, and, so what is the story that we tell? So I think there's so much, I really appreciate you sharing all that. And I think a lot of people can relate to that, just as I have what I just shared right now. Is there anything you want to say about that?
Well, one thought that came to mind was you were saying, I equally resonate with the thing coming up as an emotion, and noticing, oh, this is a pattern in my behavior that I'll have this feeling, and that will be the thing that kind of drives. And you were saying anger, and mine's shame. And I had this really pivotal conversation with one of my coaches about shame, and I would really allow this shame experience to be the thing then to unpack. And like, oh, I have this thing that I said I wanted to do. I didn't do it. I feel shame. And then shame would be something to unpack, and the like following the breadcrumbs of why did I break this commitment, etc. And really then I'm focusing on those things and not what I really actually want. And so it was, my relationship to shame is long and deep. So it cannot possibly be summarized in this one little thing. But I did have this was so powerful for me. He said that the way he interacted with it too was like, okay, so you're shaming out. All right. Like, no judgment on the shame. Yeah. And I'm like having shame about my shame. Of course. And shame about my shame about my shame.
Yeah.
And he was modeling to me the opportunity to just experience the shame and then kind of step outside of it and go, oh, hi, shame. There you are. And then decide, it's again like creating the space to notice it. And I love what you shared about the anger thing, because what a gift. And especially having gratitude for it. Oh my gosh.
That's a big pivot for me for sure.
Yeah. Wow. What a gift. That's evolution right there. It's very cool. And the other thing that I appreciated about this conversation that I had with my coach was, he said, instead of judging myself for the shame, replace it with something else, like a go-to thing, and make it light, make it silly, make it fun, if possible. Yeah. And so I started saying like, just making like a silly kind of like snapping myself back into my playful side, instead of like being so cerebral about it, which is such a, it's like a intoxicating little, what's the word I'm looking for? Luring me in to like intellectualize my feelings. And instead I could make it playful. I could have self-compassion. I could do all these other things. And depending on the scenario, one or the other of these various things could be the most helpful. The lots of different possibilities there. But anyway, I just really love what you said about that, and that feeling can be an indicator that something is going on.
Yeah, and you too, what you shared. Yeah, and I could go on, sadness, and then I look at it and I'm like, oh, well, I didn't exercise today. I didn't, push the heavy. I didn't run. I didn't.
Yes.
And so then I'm like, oh, I don't. Yeah, maybe if I try these things that I know historically help me feel better. Oh, maybe I put on a tune and I don't have a lot of time, but I'm just going to dance to one song, or, oh yeah, that's right, I didn't meditate because I woke up late because, I had the red eye or whatever, I think you can just go on and on with that. So thank you so much about sharing with shame. I think that's something we all deal with, underlying that, like, belief of not being lovable, not being worthy, and it just manifests in different ways. So I really appreciate you sharing about your journey about that, because I think it's part of the human experience, and maybe we're just at different points in terms of, how we interact with it and how we experience it. And maybe some of us are more susceptible based on, our upbringing and what we were exposed to and those stories that we've been told. So, yeah.
Do you find that, sorry, I'm cutting you off a bit. I just had this thought about, like, do you find with your physical therapy clients any pattern at all with someone who might be in these types of thought patterns that are like defaulting to anger or shame or self-doubt or like self-loathing even, which I have totally experienced, and they're correlation to their injuries or their ability to get well?
1,000%. Like, so increasingly, and I'm trying to listen to like my bigger vocation, my bigger calling, and then how that looks and like how so I'm trained as a physical therapist. I did a lot of work, master's degree, doctoral degree, fellowship, blah, blah, blah. Very impressive, whatever. You know, and then when you do something for, this is my 16th year, right? You can just be like, this is what I do. This is who I am. And then I've been an educator. I teach, you know, so I have that label of teaching the graduate students, teaching the doctoral students. And I increasingly, so as I progress, and this has been going on for some time, and I'm very, very, so speaking of being able to talk forever about this could be like a whole series, or me writing a book, or, you know, like about this of just how healthcare needs to change, and, you know, how things are really siloed. So, and I do think, so you're touching on a passion point there. So I don't, so thank you or whatever for that. But I think, you know, physical therapy, I think, is uniquely positioned because we see how a lot of people get injured and within the healthcare system versus a physician or a nurse or PA or whomever else. We spend just a lot of time with our patients, and we know a lot more of their backstory. We just ask a lot more questions. We know more about their social life, their interests, their thoughts, because we just have more time in how the profession has been structured, that we are very interpersonal and very interrelational. So it's increasingly common that my patients will say to me, this feels like therapy. And obviously I'm a physical therapist. I do physical therapy, but what they're meaning is, like that they're seeing like a mental health professional, or so I think, you know, and this is part of even like creating this podcast, and part of like my passion is if we're going to live our healthiest life, like we can't silo things. Like it can't just be like, this is what I do at the gym, you know, and this is what I eat, and this is who I spend time with, and this is what I read, and this is how I recreate, and this is what I do for work, and this is where I live, and this is what I believe about the world and why we're here and our relationship to one another. They're all related. So I can maybe stop there, because otherwise I could go on forever. But I think so increasingly I spend more time just like when somebody comes into me, like a lot of physical therapists, they would just come in and, okay, let's get on the bike and let's go and let's start doing the, you know, people come in to me and we just, you know, sit opposite each other, and I might be like, what brings you here? Or if we have a relationship already, you know, how's the last week been, or last 2 weeks, or however long it has been, or last 2 days, because all that matters. Like, and I spend so much time when I'm first meeting somebody in that evaluation, and I've increasingly I've changed like what I send to my first patients and so I have kind of a template, right? Because it needs to be stated. You need to set expectations for people, and I'm trying to let them know that first time you come in, we're really just going to try to figure out what's going on. And so a lot of that comes from the thought process. I need to know how they view their body. I need to know what they think their body is capable of. I need to know, most of the time when people, I can do preventative stuff, but that's just not how our culture is. Increasingly we're shifting there, right? I think I'm going to live to 80, 90, 100, and I want to be able to get off the couch, you know, or I want to be able to lift this box over head, or I still want to be able to hike and not fall over, you know, in my 60s. So increasingly I think people have that perspective that I kind of come to very honestly. But most people come because they've had pain or dysfunction, and they've usually had it for a while. People will deal with a lot. And then finally it becomes too disruptive and they come in. But I need to know, like, what do they believe about their pain? What do the people around them believe? Because if you don't have people that are supporting that, if you have, you know, people in your lives that, you know, aren't also out exercising, like a lot of times I'm just wanting to know their prior level activity, and a lot of people are just sedentary, and meaning they don't move, right? They're just kind of, you know, have a desk job and sit in the car and then go eat and watch a movie, you know. And so for some people it's just like, And there's research that shows it, just moving. So just going on a walk every day, so for some people, that's the first thing coming in. We're going to have, my first way of helping them is to start shifting their thought process, and letting them know, having them hear from me. So I first need to establish a relationship such that they respect me. And if they respect me, so I do my best with that. It's a little bit of, you got to sell yourself, but it's just like human connection, right?
Not hard to, do. You're a very respectable person.
So they have to like you and they have to respect you, so those are the things that I'm trying to establish. And then I can say to them, and I try to say it as clearly as I can, as long as it's true of their situation. But like, you don't need to be in back pain. You don't need to be in shoulder pain. It's going to take some time. It's going to take some work. So then they can start to contemplate that. But for a lot of people, they're not ready for physical therapy because they need to do a lot of work about just the internal mental health thing. So increasingly, I want to incorporate that. And I'm even I don't know what to call it because it doesn't really exist. So in coaching is kind of the closest to it. So I'm actually kind of currently actively trying to figure out how to do that, because if you can help people upstream, right? And I think we'll do more as we go on, is like people learn more just about their body and exercise, and maybe if we can change our education to be less about sports and more about, how to take care of your body. So there you go. You put a nickel in, and I gave you at least $5 worth.
What a return on investment there. Thank you.
So all related, and I think even spiritual, so I think it's all very related. So I think we have a lot to do, and I'm, as an educator in healthcare, I have, so speaking of, what did you say, human race? That's probably like a big part of my like human race aspirations
so great.
Let's change how we view like our human system and our human body and how we interact with it and our mind and our spirit. So as we wrap up here, what is something, and I want to say, I'll preface it a little bit, is we all have things to offer. Would you agree? Each other.
Yes.
Okay. So, and I think we all have our unique perspective, and we're all better when we share that perspective. So in light of that, what is something that you wish more people knew about living their healthiest life?
Yeah, that it's much more tangible, reachable, achievable than people might think or assume. It's like we can live a healthy life and just decide. It's just like on the other side of deciding. I had another coach tell me that too. That it's much simpler than maybe we might think, or like media at large would have us think. I think about my family history of health and wellness, and Wayne, my husband's family history of health and wellness too, and like, it's interesting to notice for me the patterns that turn into like a belief system and how that can affect what I think, like you're saying, like what I think is possible for my body. And then when I made the choice to just one day at a time do something for myself and my body, all of a sudden I was like, oh, I feel good. Oh, I feel healthy. And I think, so anyway, the nutshell is, I wish more people knew that they are very close to living their healthiest life.
I love that.
If they aren't already.
Yeah. I love that. If you were to put that into like an actionable, as with your coaching background, like, like in thinking kind of human race, like, so I'm going to push you to that, I'm going to push you to that bigger space of like, you're speaking to the human race. You've told them that living your healthy life is much more tangible, attainable than you think. Why don't you try this and see what happens? I think you're going to be positive. Like, what would be, it doesn't have to be one, but I'll say what's one thing. If you got more, bring it.
Yeah, I would say to just today, only today, and then tomorrow will also be today, and the next day after that will also be today. But just today, choose one specific action to take that you think contributes to your healthiest life.
I'm writing this down because it's good.
Yeah, I make up that a belief that might be like common for folks is that in order to live their healthiest life, they also need to already be healthy.
Yeah.
And that looks so different for everyone, but each choice we make can contribute to health and wellness and being, feeling good in that way. So like drink a glass of water. And it's as simple as that. And then it is a choice that I've made for myself, and that feels really good. Just making the choice and doing the thing feels so good. Hey, I gave my body a gift today. I gave my mind a gift today.
Yeah. I love that. And you've picked something like really simple, right? Like, okay, I'm going to up my water intake today. I'm going to drink or just this glass of water. Like I have this tangible thing and I know will I have achieved it, whether it's 4 ounces, 6 ounces, 32, whatever. That's a big glass, but that's right. Be careful with that. If somebody does that, right. And then tomorrow, maybe you just also in that same space, you're not able to think of a lot of other things to do. So even tomorrow, okay, what can I do? Well, I know I can do the water thing. Okay. You do it again. And then and then suddenly you notice you're like, you know what? My poos are more regular, and I have less gas, because things are going, and you know what? Like my skin seems to be looking better, and sometimes like I like wake up with a headache, but I don't know. I'm not having them. I wonder why, and then you might, and then as you build like this practice of, oh, what can I do today? Yeah, maybe you get more creative and you say, oh, I'm going to take a 10-minute walk, and then you do the 10-minute walk and then your poos are even better, and then you meet your neighbor, right? And now you've got a friend, and then you see that new business down the block, and then you see the hummingbird, and then you get a clipping from the person that has the dragon fruits, and now you're growing dragon fruits because you just learned that they could actually be delicious, which is true. I had a so anyway, so I love just that very today only, choose one specific action. I love that. And I can just see the ripple effects, because that simple thing, and even this loops all the way back to when we talked about the vision of you're saying, oh, I want to help the individual create togetherness, unity, vulnerability, growth. That was a lot of the things you said. I might have missed some things, but on an individual level, right? And groups, and then, but this whole human race idea, this idea that our actions matter, right? And we will start to see some of the impact, and we won't even know all the impact, so, because a lot of human race things are actually post-mortem, right? When you think of people that have really changed the world, it's not, a lot of people don't get to see the fruit of what they did, but change, that glass of water, that glass first thing, 16 ounces for me, made my headaches go away. So, these things matter. So I love that. I really, really love that.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. Yeah. The one day at a time thing too, for me, is such a huge thing. I recently was, having some noticing things about my body and my physical experience, and not feeling great, and thought, I haven't had a blood panel in so long, and I'll just do some routine things. And turns out I have some high cholesterol. It runs in my family. It's not a big surprise. Just having this conversation with my doctor, hey, is there room to da-da-da? Okay, so I made one small decision to not eat cheese.
Oh. Okay. Yeah, we have some. Okay. I also had the high cholesterol thing last December. Cut out cheese. I'm from Wisconsin, right? And the milk. And
it's literally in
my
your blood.
Like Mom grew up on a dairy farm. So, but go ahead. What happened for you?
Well, I love cheese. I love it. And I was thinking, I probably have cheese like several times a day. Regularly, like maybe not every day, but like regularly, I probably have. Like,
it's delicious.
It's delicious, and in my mind, I'm like, it's a little bit of protein. It's like
bad,
somewhat naturally occurring. So anyway, I cut it out, and I just thought, today I'm not having cheese, and it was instantly so much more palatable than thinking even this week I'm not having cheese or but really I'm thinking this probably would be good for me the long term, but I'm not committing to that. I'm committing to today. And then I feel so much better now. It's been maybe 3 weeks and I have less bloating, less like I can feel like less inflammation around and hey, no problem. Like I still love cheese. That's okay. I'm not saying I'm never going to have it, but today I'm not having cheese. My doctor actually suggested cutting out dairy, and I was like, I heard you.
Whoa.
I'll meet you at cheese.
Let's practice some self-compassion here, okay? I'm going to...
Exactly.
Look it up, but I'm going to...
Yeah. I have my feet so firmly on the ground, doc. I love Greek yogurt, and I like it as like a sour cream replacement as well. Yeah. And I feel so great about it because it's a source of protein and all that.
And probiotics.
And I'm in this like yes, and I'm in this no cheese phase, and she had said no dairy, and I thought, okay, for maybe a day I'll try no dairy, and instantly I thought, I put some milk in my coffee. Okay, that's it. I'll have milk in my coffee, and then no dairy. And that day I had like a huge thing of Greek yogurt with this like whatever meal, and I was like, definitely dairy. So then actually it came down to no cheese just to see what happens there, and all of a sudden like I'm seeing these results. So all that is to say the day at a time thing, but I'm curious for you about the no cheese.
Yeah, we can bond over this a little bit. Yeah, so I had that similar experience in December, and I was like, excuse me, what? And I was like, okay, the pandemic, and I had the knee thing, and I guess my kidney was infected, and so I was like the least active I've ever been in my life, which would kind of mitigate like against my diet, which I didn't think was, people that know me would think my diet was very healthy. I've been accused of that.
Oh, really?
That my diet was healthy? Yeah.
That your diet is healthy. Yes.
I was like, well, you don't think so? I'm like, that's fine. You can be the first that's like,
No, I flipped it.
No.
I heard
usually people are like, what?
Okay, yes,
you eat
I'm
donuts?
with you.
Why do you eat ice cream? I'm like, yes, I do. Absolutely. Right. So I did, so my version of cutting dairy, so I would be like, I cut out dairy, but I still do my yogurt because I feel super good when I eat it. Like the probiotic is like, and I love the Greek with the protein. I would put, due to some other dietary things, whatever. But I would have toast in the morning and I would put butter on it. So those are my dairies. And I cut out cheese, like my partner and I would go through like a pound of cheese in a week. We'd do like a gallon of milk in a week. This is like the level of, and then ice cream, of course, desserts. Yes. So cut it out, and it went okay. When I followed up like 3 months later, my cholesterol had dropped 30 points, so I was well within. And my HDL is always high, so that made my total, high overall. So worked super amazing. But here's the thing.
Wow.
I just actually feel better. So growing up in the dairy land, right, there's just like, it's always been a part of what I had, and I've always been like, I'm not lactose intolerant. I do just fine. Well, having cut it out, and there's, if you stop taking dairy, your body stops making the enzyme that breaks down like lactose, so it can be like something your body has to learn. But no, I was like, oh, I'm less gassy. Like the gas that I had that I was just like, oh, that's me, is like, no, that seems to be from your body. So now I've been traveling, you know, in Mexico, Colombia. I'm heading home in a few days. It's hard to eat the way that I established I felt really good. There's like dairy everywhere here. There's like cheese, like in everything. You know, everything's like low fiber, grains, you know. My body is not very happy with me, and like the things are happening again, the bloating and so those lifestyle changes I made, dietary, they were forced on me based on but I was like, sometimes you need that, you know, to take those action steps that feel kind of drastic. But oh man, once you realize that you do it and then you reintroduce things, that's the learning point. So I was super happy to bring back in pizza after a few months, and not regularly, because I could down that stuff, you know, weekly, a couple days a week.
For
but
sure.
no, it's been a learning, and it's not, I'm like, okay, I feel better without it. So yeah, I love the oat milk in my lattes, so I'm just around the world asking for, in Espanol, leche de avena, por favor, you know? So you're doing the important things.
Do they look at you like you're insane?
My Spanish skills are so good. No.
No, I mean, like, when you ask for oat milk, are they like, loco?
Yeah, loco. The world is more global, I think, than we think. And I've been in like some bigger kind of cities, so it's been a little harder to get the oat milk in Colombia. I was able to get it quite readily in Mexico. And you know, I wasn't in super rural places, so they're not like, no, they're not thinking I'm crazy. It's happening everywhere, but a lot of places just have almond milk, and I'm sorry, almond milk in a beverage is just a little gritty for me. I'll put it in my smoothies, but I'm sorry. So oat milk's in my beverages, almond milk in the smoothie. Yeah.
Okay, it's good. Hot tip.
That was extra for our listeners. So no judgment. You know, I was always like very pro omnivore, eat all the things. But live your own journey. But, you know, maybe if you're dealing with some bloating, some gas at times, you know, maybe try some of the things that are known to give that and cut it out and see if it helps. You got 2 for 2 here. So good luck on your journey with that, Meg. And
2 for 2. Thank you.
Thank you. Meg Miller, thank you so much for joining me on the LYHL podcast. This has just been a wonderful conversation and so rich. So just thank you so much for sharing of yourself and your experience and just where you're headed in the future. I'm really excited for your journey. It's been fun to see you step into this coaching role, and super, super excited for you and to see what happens with more. So anybody out there, if you need an MC, you need a coach, right?
Hit up your girl. Thank you. This has been really fun. I mean, I just love talking to you anytime. So it's fun to share it on this platform, and I love what you're doing, and thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks to everyone. May you see the blessing. Thanks for listening to this episode of the LYHL podcast. If you liked what you heard, you can find me on Instagram at the Elle, as well as YouTube, the internet, www.theellebetrell.com. And that's about it. And back here for our next episode of the podcast. Subscribe and leave a nice review if you think it'll be helpful for other people. Only then. Thanks. May you see the blessing.